Overpaying for anything sucks, especially socks, so why pay $45 for a single pair of grip socks when you can spend less than half? Pure Grip Socks Pro feature our best materials for optimal fit, moisture wicking, and performance at a fair price, just $16.99 a pair at puregripsocks.com.
Laid out here on the table in front of me is all, should have counted beforehand, all 5 versions of the new Adidas X SpeedPortal, minus the SpeedPortal 0.4, which retails for $65, mainly because it's just kind of a generic football boot with SpeedPortal colors and graphics and doesn't really relate to the rest of the line. These 5 boots range in price from $85 to $280 at full retail, and of course the question becomes, which ones are the best, which ones are the worst, and which ones are worth your time and money. Because spoiler alert, and I know a lot of people don't like to hear this, some of these boots simply are not worth it. So we're gonna compare them all, talk about what the differences are, and ultimately conclude this video in ranking them from worst to best. So really quickly, if you do end up finding this video helpful, drop a like, it helps me out a lot. And if you aren't subscribed to the channel already, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on my reviews of all the latest football boots of 2022. And of course, if you are interested in any of the new SpeedPortal boots, you can pick them up below their normal retail prices by way of some exclusive SR4U coupon codes by checking out the links down below. The most expensive option in the lineup at $280 is the X SpeedPortal Plus. This is one of 2 top-end options in the line, with this of course being the laceless variation that, in comparison to the SpeedFlow Plus that it replaces, has actually increased in price by $5. If you prefer your boots with laces at $250, you have the X SpeedPortal 0.1, which does feature a similar but still different upper, the inclusion of a lacing system, and the exact same sole plate and stud pattern with the Carbitex insert that you'll also get on the more expensive SpeedPortal Plus. The SpeedPortal 0.2 is the first takedown model in the new lineup, retailing for a relatively steep $150, a $20 price increase from last year's SpeedFlow 0.2, and features pretty much none of the same elements that you'll find on the more expensive models, other than the stud pattern. The SpeedPortal.3 Laceless is one of 2 second-tier takedown models, this one retailing for the more expensive $100 retail price, and of course features a laceless design, significantly less expensive than the SpeedPortal Plus at $280, but perhaps not necessarily worth it, depending on what you're looking for. And then finally, your least expensive option, but still a boot that saw a $5 price increase from the SpeedFlow 0.3 that it replaces, the SpeedPortal 0.3 with laces retails for $85. Of course, does feature some laces across the top of the foot, but again, doesn't really share much in common with the more expensive variations. While technically the SpeedPortal Plus and 0.1 have the same Speedskin 2.0 upper, the Speedskin 2.0 of the Plus model is by far the better variation. It's a completely different pattern, and honestly it's a little bit deceptive that they both have the same name, but you can see it's a knit/textile base. The pattern changes quite significantly depending on what part of the upper it is, but it's thin, it's pliable, it offers a really premium barefoot feel on the ball, and actually wraps your foot really nicely. It has some weird quirks like these little kinks on either side of the laceless system that look kind of weird, but honestly you don't feel them on the ball, and it even has some micro texturing in certain parts of the upper as well that also really makes for no major difference in terms of feel or additional grip. But realistically, if you're looking for that as close to the ball as possible barefoot feel, especially with that laceless system that just feels seamless across the top of the foot, nothing quite has the touch and feel of the SpeedPortal Plus. It's really impressive. Where, like I mentioned, the SpeedPortal 0.1 does technically have Speedskin 2.0 for an upper. However, this one is a little bit thicker and certainly feels more rigid and plasticky. It's not that it's bad in any way at all, but it just doesn't feel quite as premium on feet. However, the addition of a lacing system, while perhaps not as seamless across the top of the foot, does make the upper feel much more secure and structured on your foot, which you might actually prefer the feel of, especially if you're looking for that locked down sensation. texturing. You also have that micro texturing on the surface of the upper, but once again, it really has no impact on feel. It's not that this upper feels bad, because it doesn't. It's still a premium barefoot sensation on the ball, but compared to the SpeedPortal Plus, I just don't think it feels quite as nice. The SpeedPortal.2 upper is a textile-based synthetic material that honestly feels pretty similar to what you'll find on the SpeedPortal.1, maybe even a little bit more pliable. Unfortunately, it's let down by the rest of the football boot, but in terms of pure touch and feel for the ball, I actually really like this one. Where the SpeedPortal.3, both the laceless and laced variations also feature a textile-based synthetic upper. You can see that fishnet pattern, but in general, it's definitely on the cheaper side compared to the more expensive options, but still feels pretty good on the ball. These two suffer from other issues that I think let down the football boots as a whole, but whether it's $100 or $85, certainly more so at $85, the touch on the ball is decent considering the price. Let's talk about weight. And before somebody says weight doesn't matter, lighter boots aren't going to make you faster, that's totally true. However, when you're talking about a line of football boots in the speed category with speed in the actual name, I think the boots being light is pretty important to the experience and feel that they're going to have on offer. So how much do they all weigh? All in the same size, 9.5 US. We'll start off with the SpeedPortal Plus, and you can see that they weigh in at 6.9 ounces, the equivalent of 196 grams, which is super light. The SpeedPortal.1 with laces weighs in at 7.05 ounces, the equivalent of 200 grams, more or less the same as the laceless model, but technically a couple grams more. Here's where things get disappointing. The SpeedPortal.2, retailing for $150, which is by no means inexpensive, weighs in at 8.95 ounces, the equivalent of 254 grams. That is not light. The laceless SpeedPortal.3 at $100 weighs in at 9.3 ounces, the equivalent of 264 grams, even more than the .2s. And the lace SpeedPortal.3 for $85 weighs in at 9.1 ounces, the equivalent of 257 grams. In other words, these feel like speed boots, and these have speed in the name. As far as stud patterns go, at least when you're talking about the FG variations, they all have the exact same one, so if you're looking for aggressive traction, you'll get it from all 5 versions. However, there is huge variation when it comes to the sole plates. Of course, on the top end SpeedPortal Plus N.1, you're going to find the Speed Frame 2.0 with the Carbitex insert that they do say is full length, but is realistically just a couple centimeters longer than what we had on the SpeedFlow that it replaces. They're just showing more of it because of the plastic plate that sits on top. Nonetheless, that plastic plate in combination with this carbon fiber insert provides this springback effect that is pretty much unlike any other football boot. If you're looking for that springy sensation underneath your foot, this does that as well as anything. Of course, there's a comparison between this and Nike's Air Zoom Tech on the latest generation of Mercurials, and quite honestly, they're two very different things. In terms of actual feedback from the physical sole plate, this does that better than anything else out there, and honestly is a really positive experience. I don't think it feels quite as good as the insert and general sole plate layout that we had on the SpeedFlow that it replaces, but it comes very close and is ultimately still top notch. Where the SpeedPortal.2 and .3 options all feature basically a variation of the same thing in a much cheaper plastic stud plate on top, and then some more plastic with a carbon fiber pattern etched on the surface to try and deceive consumers into thinking that they're getting actual carbon fiber. This feels clunkier, it's heavier, it's just basically a flexible plastic sole plate. It's not that it's bad, but it's nothing like the top models. When it comes to fit and feel, both the SpeedPortal Plus and SpeedPortal.1 both feel really good, but they also feel quite a bit different. Obviously, they're on the same sole plate base, and the general shape of the two boots I would say is pretty similar as well, where they've definitely increased some of the width and volume coming from the SpeedFlow line that these replace. But basically the main difference here is, do you want a tighter fit? If that's the case, go for the .1, or do you want a looser fit? If that's the case, go for the SpeedPortal Plus or laces or laceless. That's really the choice you have to make. And the reason why I say that the laceless one does feel loose is that by top-end speed boot standards, they just don't really squeeze your foot that tightly. It's not to say that they don't fit well, but there's so much stretch from this laceless system across the top of the foot that they just don't feel overly secure. Pair that up with the tons of extra padding that both of these boots have in the heel, and it just feels a little bit, I don't want to say sloppy, but it feels like my heel could pop out of the football boots. It's not necessarily a huge issue, especially if you're wearing them with grip socks, but if you're looking for that super secure sensation, you're definitely not getting that from the SpeedPortal Plus as much as you are from the 0.1. This is objectively going to be the more locked down and responsive feeling football boot when it comes to making quick cuts and changes of direction. Definitely the Plus wins in terms of overall comfort, but I would definitely take the extra lockdown and structure from the 0.1 as a trade-off to the comfort, just based on the performance characteristics. In my opinion, the SpeedPortal 0.1 with its extra lockdown is the better speed boot. Now here's where there's a huge drop-off when it comes to the fit and overall comfort. The SpeedPortal 0.1, like I mentioned, stiffer than the Plus, but overall pretty comfortable and fits quite well. The SpeedPortal 0.2, however, has a great feel to the upper. I think the shape is more or less the same through the midfoot, forefoot, and toe box area, which is by no means a bad thing, but the heel, the shallow fit, it's basically like your heel doesn't sit deep enough inside the football boot, and it applies pressure to the upper middle parts of your heel. That's super uncomfortable, and it feels like if someone were to step on your heel in just the right way, your feet are going to fly out of these football boots. I'm not sure how Adidas continues to make the same mistake, and for a pair of football boots that are 150 bucks, it's just unacceptable. Pair that up with the much cheaper feeling sole plate, and you end up with two football boots that, despite looking quite similar, could not feel more different. And to me, again, the fit and comfort is just straight up unacceptable with the SpeedPortal 0.2, especially given the price tag. As for the 0.3 models, the shallow fitting heel isn't quite as much of an issue as it is on the 0.2. Those are just truly upsetting, and honestly, on the 0.3 with laces in particular, because of the extra security and lockdown you get from that lacing system, these are actually wearable. I don't think they're uncomfortable, but I still don't like the slightly shallow fit to the heel. As a laceless option, it actually has more tension to the laceless system than what you're going to get from that top-end SpeedPortal Plus, so it's arguably a little bit tighter, but the quality of materials used overall doesn't really suit a laceless design all that well, and the boot as a whole still feels sloppy and insecure and simply isn't that comfortable, not just because of the lack of security, but when you pair that up with the shallow fitting heel, it just doesn't feel right. To me, if you're going for a 0.3 option, the laced variation at $85 is just so much better, but overall, neither is particularly impressive at their respective price points. So to summarize the new SpeedPortal line from Adidas, I think their two top-end models they've done a pretty good job with. They're not necessarily improvements over the speed flows that they replace, but depending on what you're looking for, there's an argument to be made for the SpeedPortal Plus, and there's an argument to be made for the SpeedPortal 0.1. When it comes to the takedown models, however, this is where I take issue with what Adidas have done, in that there is a lack of true DNA carryover into the cheaper variations when compared to the flagship models. These feel great, these ones don't, and the reason why they don't feel great is because they feel nothing like these. Not to mention the unforgivable shallow fitting heels of the takedown models that has plagued Adidas takedown boots for such a long time. I just don't understand why they don't fix it. So from worst to best, in last place, it has to be the SpeedPortal 0.2. This to me at $150 is simply not worth it, and you would be crazy to buy these for more money over the Nike Mercurial Vapor 15 Pro, the Superfly 9 Pro, or even the Puma Ultra 2.3. Those are all better football boots by quite a large margin and less expensive. In second last, and also a pair of football boots that I just can't recommend, the Laceless SpeedPortal 0.3. At $100, you are at the top price point of second tier takedown models, and just based on the fit alone, the lockdown through the heel, the comfort of this football boot, I get the fact that it's laceless and there's appeal to that, especially at a lower price point, but they just aren't very good for $100. There are so many better options, and if you're looking for a takedown model from Adidas specifically, something like the Copa Sense 0.3 Point.3 at $75 or $80 is just a much better pair of boots. Right in the middle, and a pair of football boots that I can't say that I don't recommend, but they probably wouldn't be my first pick. The Speedportal.3 with the laces for $85. The shallow heel, like I said, pretty unforgivable, but the addition of a lacing system provides a fit and lockdown that I think is decent if you can get used to the shallow fitting heel. With that said, they're still relatively clunky and they're just heavy for what they're supposed to be. And truthfully, if I was spending $85 on a pair of football boots, I just think that the Nike alternative in the Mercurial Vapor 15 Pro for the exact same price is a better overall feeling and performing product. In second place, the $280 Speedportal Plus. I think this is the most comfortable boot out of the entire lineup. However, it's a pair of football boots that I would only want to wear in like a light training session where I wasn't going to be doing any running at all. They just don't feel secure enough on my feet because of this laceless system design. It stretches too much and they feel too insecure. Pair that up with the very chunky and heavily padded heel. I just don't think that they feel like $280 football boots. If you're into the whole laceless thing and you don't want your speed boots to feel super tight, you're probably gonna love the feel of the Speedportal Plus. And overall, I still think they're solid football boots, but just based on my own personal preferences and what I know is available as alternative options from other lines for the same amount of money or less, it just wouldn't be my speed boot of choice. Which leaves the Speedportal .1 as the top option in the new X lineup for $250. It is the best in terms of objective performance characteristics, despite the upper not feeling quite as pliable or quite frankly as good as what you get on the laceless variation. Tie the laces up, however, and the additional rigidity and structure to the upper gives you a much more locked in and responsive feel that I think most people buying a pair of top-end speed boots are looking for. Pair that up with better lockdown in the heel, a great sole plate and stud pattern, and the end result is a pair of football boots that in the speed category is pretty well as good as anything. They're just solid boots.